What's up, it's Lerald. Alright, so we spent a lot more time thinking about classes since our last video. I was hoping we could get the passive tree before League launch, and that would help clarify things as to what's going to be good and bad in the coming League, but according to Local Identity, we're not getting a PoE update, we're not getting anything about the passive tree, so I guess we're all just flying blind. So between Reddit and streamers and, I don't know, general chat, the community has made two absolutely ironclad declarations about the state of classes going into patch 0.3. Warrior is bad, the worst thing ever to exist, and Deadeye is the GOAT, literally the best ascendancy of all time. If you roll it, you're going to get a billion mirrors and just have the perfect League start, and everything in your life is going to be perfect. So I've run the campaign a bunch of times on different characters just to get back in the swing of things of playing PoE 2 and to feel out the experience of actually running through these classes and the campaign and SSF setups, and I think my thoughts have changed slightly since our last video. I had started with 3 choices in that video: Fire Warrior, Hollow Palm Monk, and Arc Sorc. Then I widened it up to 5, now I've narrowed it back down to 2. I think you can guess what those 2 are. So let's go ahead and get into it, but first be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and join our Discord as well. We're closing in on 1,000 members, and that's a big milestone for us that we really want to hit before the League launches. Alright, so starting with Sorc and Monk, I think Sorc looks pretty cool, but it's going to be so wildly different from what it is already, and I already feel like I don't know enough about spells in PoE 2 to really feel like I would have a great time at League start with it, so I think I just want to double back to Arc Sorc later on in the League once the meta for it is kind of settled down a bit. As for Monk, I did play through the first few acts of the campaign, and it is brutal. I played it on the patch 0.1 release. I thought maybe it was just so painful because I was bad or because the game was that much harder. No, it's just really brutal. You will absolutely die playing Monk at League start. This is not like to discourage anyone. Monk becomes extremely fun later on, but it really puts the pain into campaign. I don't want anyone going in blind and getting their teeth knocked out and being mad at me because of it, so like, PSA, it is hard. I am not going to start because of how painful it is early on, but maybe as a second or third character, it will be pretty dope once you have a decent amount of gear and you're able to kind of twink a character out. Alright, now moving on to Deadeye. So we don't exactly know how good the new deflect defensive layer is going to be. We're obviously not going to be able to see the new passive tree until the patch drops, so everything is pretty speculative. We simply don't know. What I do know is that Deadeye is very good. It already was good, even if it got no changes in the coming patch, or even if it got small nerfs, it would still be good. Ranged skills are going to have less of a move speed slow in the coming patch than they do currently. They already feel pretty snappy and quick compared to melee skills, and then Roa's getting a 15% baseline move speed increase as well, and it all just boils down to Deadeye being faster and stronger than it already was when it was easily the second best ascendancy in the game after Amazon. But it is also getting buffed, and we can see that in the patch notes here. Called Shots is being redesigned from this bonus here, where you can apply an additional mark. Now it's going to let you instead chain projectiles to marked enemies, and then give you this new meta skill that's kind of a black box. We don't exactly know how this works. It'll repeatedly mark enemies near you, bypassing the mark limit. This is a really interesting concept, so there's kind of a downside with marks. They're no longer going to be triggerable. They're not going to be spells, so you can't put them in cast on crit or cast on ailment or anything like that anymore. You have to hard cast marks, which kind of sucks, but marks are extremely strong. Like, some of the mark bonuses are enemies you mark can't crit, enemies near them are blinded. I think it's over here, Culling Strike on one of these, Culling Strike here, you know, a lot of really good stuff. 10% increased damage on enemies you've marked. So really good bonuses for marking, and if this allows you to automate marks, which it may not, it may be something that you have to hand cast, in which case that would be kind of bad, but if it is, this is completely insane. Then there's also this bonus, the Eagle Eyes bonus, which is being removed from being, what was it before, no accuracy penalty at distance. They're basically getting rid of accuracy as like a huge concern. Player accuracy growth per level is increasing, monster evasion growth per level is decreasing, so it's going to be a lot easier to accuracy cap. You won't need Eagle Eyes at all. You won't really need, I think, that much accuracy on your gear to hit at ranged, and they're making it just so that it's like trivially easy to hit in melee range. You essentially will need no accuracy, so that's pretty good. And instead what you get is, if you consume a mark, which means you have to be using Sniper's Mark, I think that's pretty much the only way to consume a mark that I can think of. Maybe I'm missing one. But anyways, Sniper's Mark, when you crit with it, now you'll get 20 stacks of critical weakness. That's 10% flat crit. So if you are running a regular bow with no crit bonuses at all, that's 15% is now your base crit. If you have any bonuses to crit, you're going to be looking like in the 20 plus range. And then it becomes very easy to get up approaching 100% crit while playing a Deadeye on pretty much any rare or boss enemy. You just throw a mark on them, yap them with something that crits, get that crit weakness on them, and now they're just like, they're toast, right? I think the biggest thing is that Tailwinds is not getting nerfed at all. Tailwind is still insanely strong. It stacks up to 10 times. It's 10% move speed, 30% action speed, so good for spellcasting or attacking with bows or crossbows or, I mean, technically melee skills, although I don't really think that would be like a goal for me for Deadeye. And then you also get up to 30% less damage taken from Wind Ward. This is pretty much locked in. You're going to be running this. And then it really just boils down to whether these two new mark bonuses are good, whether you're trying to work on like single target or whether you want to have clear, as to whether you take like point blank and endless munitions for clear, or you take like the mark skills for bossing. But Deadeye is going to be very, very, very good for clearing. It's the only ascendancy in the entire game that gives move speed, and it also gets a huge evasion bonus out of that move speed bonus as well. So yeah, Tailwind rules. I have a basic Lightning Arrow Deadeye tree that I've been kind of playing around with. I'll put it in the description. Obviously, this isn't updated for patch 0.3 because nothing is, this isn't like super fancy or anything. I did throw in Freezing Salvo just as a little like 4-link here for the campaign. This is something you can play around with once you unlock it at, I don't remember, level 5 or maybe 7 or something. It's pretty good for just very quickly deleting rares and freezing bosses and stuff. It might be worth comboing with Escape Shot. The new ice bow skills looked pretty cool, and Escape Shot leaving a bunch of fragments in conjunction with Freezing Salvo could be good. I just, obviously I don't know since we're not on the server, we're not on the update yet and able to really play around with it and tell for sure, but that is the first thing I would try. I would also consider playing Ice Shot once you're in Act 3 and it's available. Cold is going to be great. But Shock is getting a huge buff next week. It's going to last twice as long, and it's just going to be super easy to just lock in Lightning Arrow, lightning damage for the 3rd patch in a row, Very familiar looking passive tree for anybody who's been playing PoE 2 for the last year or so. And yeah, that's basically it on Deadeye. You know it, you love it. It's fast, it's tanky, it's getting buffed for some reason. It's goated, right? But for some reason, Warrior keeps calling out to me. And before I move on from this, there are a few downsides to playing Deadeye. First off, it is going to be the meta build. There have been a lot of polls on Reddit asking what people are planning to play, and it's like 40% user response rate is Deadeye. So playing a Deadeye will be expensive. And it's not amazing with zero budget, so that is a real concern. Also, yes, it is a Fubgun approved build, so it's going to be an incredible map blaster and a solid bosser. But it's also a build I know extremely well. I think most people know it pretty well. We all know it. It's nothing new. There's no sense of wonder or exploration in playing Lightning Arrow Deadeye for the bazillionth time. Maybe I want more from life than just eating brown rice and drinking water. You know what I mean? Maybe I deserve a little bit of fun. Now, I actually don't think it's going to be that tanky either when it comes to the new league mechanic. So those would be the 3 things, right? Expensive, not new or creative at all, not actually very tanky. It could be tanky. I have serious doubts about the viability of the new deflection defense when it's on a low budget. We literally will not know until we're able to get into the game and play around with it on the day of. But a mechanic like Abyss that vomits out tons and tons and tons of monsters in a confined space sounds like a nightmare for an evasion-based class. It sounds like you're going to get one-banged over and over again. And so now here's where I'm actually leaning in the coming league. As my starter, it's Warrior. It's Titan, in fact. So the thing about Warrior is that it is a very strong class in the campaign, and I don't think that's going to change in patch 0.3. My goal in the first weekend of the league is just to have a smooth run through the campaign, get set up playing a build that can do well, farming the new league mechanic, and making some basic currency as I progress through the Atlas. I think Warrior is going to be great for that specific purpose. Now, first off, I realize this is like pedantic, but everyone keeps making this mistake, even all the way up to like Jonathan and Mark. Warriors aren't maces. Warriors aren't armor. You can play a Titan Warrior as an evasion crossbow character, and like, spoiler alert for the end of this section, that might be what I wind up doing if my plans go south. Alright, so let's start with the first thing that's being nerfed, and that would be max block chance. Block is getting this ability to not just block strikes and projectiles, In the same way that evasion can only apply to strikes and projectiles, block is now going to be able to block all hits except for the like red flash boss abilities, the Sekiro, unblockable, unparryable skills. For everything else, you're going to be able to passively block it. So there's been some analysis of this on Reddit. There's this one post on Reddit that I'll put in the description if you want to go contribute to the thread here. It's like a day old at this point. Pretty controversial though, 230 upvotes and 220 comments, so a lot of action happening there. There's just a lot of discussion that basically like 40-something% of attacks were unblockable prior to the patch. And the thing about that is that block and evasion are really more comparable to each other. People tend to compare evasion and armor with each other. It's a really common mistake. It's kind of GGG's fault. They are the two of the three basic defensive archetypes, right? But block, like evasion, makes it so you just completely avoid all the damage from a hit. And the thing is that we basically already have something that works like that. It's acrobatics, and it is vastly more punishing than losing 25% max block. You know, the max on evasion is still 90%. And if you take acrobatics, which allows you to evade, you know, all the stuff that you're going to be able to block going forward, you are never going to get anywhere close back to like 50% evasion rating without, you know, massive investment. So because of this, what this is doing is it's making block a much better stat at low investment, at league start, than it would have been before. And much better than evasion is, in fact. So by comparison, just like looking at the wiki page for armor here, armor is a stat that gives you more damage reduction the more you have of it. It is better if you have a lot of it. It is scaled based on the damage of the hit, which is very different from the way that most other video games deal with armor. You know, World of Warcraft is kind of the standard model. It's a % damage reduction based on a constant value that can change from like expansion to expansion. Then you have games like Elden Ring where it's just flat damage reduction. It reduces a flat number of damage from every hit. In PoE, the amount of damage reduction you get out of value is based off of the amount of armor you have and the damage of the hit. It's a little complicated, but not really. None of this is more complicated than like basic algebra, but it is still like, it's a bit of work to like think about, right? So because of that, having a lot of armor is good. Having more armor, if you're gonna have any armor, you want to either have a lot of it or like just kind of not bother, and it really winds up being much better at mitigating lots of small hits than it is at mitigating large hits. The thing with large hits is that for the most part, they are dodgeable, you know, sidesteppable. They're slams and stuff, and the goal of not getting killed by those, the way to not get killed by those is just to sidestep them. Now, the thing about deflection that's somewhat like armor is that it's guaranteed to be 40% damage reduction whenever it triggers, but we don't really know how the deflection chance works. It's very different from armor where it works on every single hit, and so it's very good for a lot of small hits. Deflection's kind of not amazing for large hits. It's 40%, you know, it's not bad, but it's not great for small hits. It's somewhere in between. Now, they have said that you can get a 100% chance with enough investment, but how much do you actually need? I have no idea. So one of the things that is going to make armor a significantly better stat in the coming league is the nerf to Smith of Kitava. So Smith of Kitava was the most popular warrior ascendancy in the last league. It's gotten a lot of nerfs. It's probably not going to be played very much. The thing about Smith of Kitava is it heavily incentivizes you running a normal body armor. The body armor slot is where you get most of the armor. So on like this character where I just clicked in a bunch of this gear down here, the pre-made garbage gear with like no suffixes, just like flat armor, medium roll percent armor, life, like that's it on all the gear. And then I'm even wearing a thrill steel, like garbage unique just for speed here in this Ascendance or in this PoB setup. I have like 8,500 armor without running Stone Skin. A normal Smith of Kitava and like pretty decent gear after the first weekend of last league would have had like 2,000 armor, maybe 2,500 because they had no prefixes on their body armor. You know, like their gear is quite a lot different. Now, if you spec into Stone Skin, you get 50% more armor out of your body armor. You're going to be looking at like 11,000, 10,000 armor on a Titan. That's actually pretty respectable. Like that's quite a lot better off than you were going to get out of the Smith of Kitava. So the nerf of Smith of Kitava is a nerf to the way that Warrior was played before. But the thing is that there were no changes to Titan, and Titan was still very, very good. The real issue here is just simply that Smith of Kitava gave you the ability to completely trivialize resistance gearing at the start of the league. You just take Tantalum Alloy for 75 fire res, and then Coal Stoker to give yourself cold and lightning res based on that fire res. Forged in Flame, you know, all the usual stuff that you would do over here, trivialize resistances, and then kind of didn't get anything else out of this Ascendancy. It was incredibly boring. Like, your armor values were terrible. You got no offense out of this Ascendancy at all, other than maybe the 20% strength node. That was kind of it. Very boring. But Titan was not nerfed. It's still as good as it ever was, and stun build-up's actually gotten a substantial buff in the form of this bug fix from the patch notes, a bug where the multipliers to stun build-up for phys and melee damage were additive with stun build-up multipliers instead of multiplicative. So it's going to be way easier to heavy stun enemies, and hey, what do you know, 50% more damage against heavy stun enemies. As this Titan notable, like, I don't know that this is necessarily worth giving up 15% more life to get, but there is a world in which you might play around with that. It also synergizes very nicely with Skull Crusher for 20% more damage against heavy stun enemies. So you've got two different massive more damage multipliers against heavy stun enemies. And then there are tons of bonuses throughout the tree that apply to heavy stun enemies. There's Skull Crusher, obviously. There are so many sources of stun buildup throughout the tree. This wheel here, perfect opportunity, giving you lucky damage against heavy stun enemies. It then synergizes very nicely with Heft, giving you 30% increased maximum phys damage. Like, there's just a lot of stun buildup throughout the tree, as we can see. Yeah, a lot of it, right? So it becomes very easy to stun enemies, like, a lot, and then use that as a massive multiplier on your damage, which then kind of fixes the issues that warriors would have with dealing damage in single target. Alright, so another thing that people have immediately decided is terrible for warriors is the new armor suffix. It gives armor contributing to elemental damage. And so the issue with this is that it's calculated before elemental resistances, at least thus far in the game's design. And this was made a lot worse by warriors basically just having automatic 90 all-res apply playing Smith of Kitava. Now, if you only have 75% max res, or even less due to minus max res penalties or whatever, then it becomes a lot stronger defensive layer. We're talking about, you know, depending on how much of it you're able to stack up, 10, 20, 30% damage reduction on all of the elemental hits that come in addition to the 75% that you would be getting out of your resistances. If those numbers go lower, again, because you're cursed or minus max res on a map, then it's a significantly better layer even than that. So we don't really know how much we're going to be able to get at once or how good it'll be. I can't really say if it's good or bad or mid. I just simply don't know yet, and I'm not ready to discount it as a stat until I've gotten a chance to actually play with it. Alright, next issue. Giant's Blood is being nerfed. It's now going to cut the amount of life that you get from strength by 50%. I've seen a lot of people say that it's going to cut your life in half. This is wrong. So a warrior that was running Giant's Blood in the last league would maybe have like 800 strength. That's a pretty high amount of strength, and that means you would get 400 life. This means that you would go down from 400 life to 200 life. The thing is that it is a lot easier to use. Currently, the amount of strength that you require to run like a nice two-hander, like a Ruination Maul with Giant's Blood is like 636 strength. Very, very high. You know, the difference being, of course, like, what, 212 without Giant's Blood? But because attribute lowerments are going down by 25%, 636 times 0.75, it's only like 477. I have basically no stats on this character at all, just the points from traveling around the tree, and I'm already like 50 points away from that strength requirement, so it becomes incredibly easy to hit that stat budget requirement now due to that change. So I really don't think it's actually that bad of a change, even though a lot of people are quite up in arms about it. I think another thing is that weapon swapping kind of makes it irrelevant. You can use a sword and board to map, well, a mace and shield, a one-hander and a shield, and then blast bosses with a two-hander. Yeah, sorry, not a sword, my bad. So another issue that people have is that Perfect Strike is getting its damage nerfed, and that's undeniable. Perfect Strike is losing, what, like 30% damage, 25 to 30% damage? This is true, but I just did a solo self-found one-handed mace playthrough of the campaign to see how bad Perfect Strike actually is with a one-handed mace, and I cleared all of Act 3 with the one-hander I found at the start of Act 2 and never replaced. Again, just to kind of see how bad it was. One-handed maces do less than half the damage of two-handers, and it was fine. It was fine. I died less on Warrior than I did on any other class. It really did play pretty well. I have to say, actually, one-handed maces kind of surprised me, especially taking this wheel and getting a lot of like extra attack speed out of Reaving Despair, as opposed to like minus attack speed out of stuff like Singular Purpose. It actually feels pretty good to play with compared to two-handers. Not that I'm recommending one-handing, but it does feel pretty smooth. I think if two-handers felt like that, people wouldn't even complain about Warrior and Maces being slow. So in terms of getting through all those zones in the campaign, just like stunning monsters with Leap Slam and then like bone shattering them work totally fine, one-hander or two-hander. In terms of bossing, you're going to stun bosses with Shield Charge or Leap Slam or whatever, Mace Strike, and then finish them off with two-handed Perfect Strikes, and it's going to be fine. Now, while Perfect Strike is getting a nerf, there are a couple of skills that are actually getting pretty significant buffs, and those would be Supercharged Slam, which is getting like 20 to 25% more damage, and it's more front-loaded. It's not nearly as heavily backloaded. And then another one is Earthquake. Earthquake is getting like a 22 or 23% damage increase. So again, either of those could wind up being a straight-up replacement for Perfect Strike. They're a lot easier to use. I really don't like I understand why Perfect Strike is so widely used. It hits like a damn truck, but I really am not a fan of the actual wind up of using it. I think that there are a lot of other skills that are more fun to use. So I'm actually okay with those being a lot more competitive. But wait, there's more. The support gem change is going to make it so that you can run gems like Martial Tempo and a lot more skills, and that'll fix a lot of the issues of being super slow. But also you can put different things like Fist of War support onto all of your slams, and now you have the ability to bounce back and forth between multiple slams when you're on a boss and get 30% more damage and 20% more area of effect on all those slams on bosses. You have the ability to generate endurance charges very reliably now through Enduring Impact, which will give you 3 endurance charges when you heavy stun a boss, and pretty decent shot of generating endurance charges whenever you heavy stun non-boss enemies. I think what's happened here is that by changing the support gem system, I was initially worried that it would result in less build creativity. I actually think it's going to do the opposite. I think there's actually a lot room for more build creativity now than there was before. I've come full circle here. So because of this ability to generate tons of charges, both through Perfect Strike and through heavy stunning enemies, I think you're going to be able to spam to lots of totems or lots of war cries. I still think totems are kind of dumb, but they are a lot stronger now that they're able to use your weapon to attack. So I think that they're going to basically be in pretty good shape if you want to play totems. They will be really good against abysses since they're all confined to a single space instead of moving all over the place. I think that's going to be really, really good. Warrior in general, I think, will be really good against abyss. And on the subject of war cries, I know there's been some concern about them losing some damage on the initial hit, but I actually think they've gotten a pretty significant buff because they don't just empower 1 attack now, they empower up to 5 attacks based on the enemy power that you're in range of. And the thing with that is war cry, empowered attacks is what I'm going to search for, empowered attack. There are so many bonuses on the passive tree for increasing the damage of your empowered attacks. If you take all of these bonuses, here, if you're playing a Titan with hulking form, so you get 50% increased effect of all the small passives, if you take all of these bonuses that give you empowered attacks deal extra damage, I think it's 210% extra damage in just the ones that I've clicked here, not even including this little one over here. So that's a pretty huge amount of added damage, 210% increased damage on all of your attacks if you're able to maintain pretty good uptime on your Warcry skills, which I definitely think you can. There are some support gems there's a combination of Raging Cry to use Warcries to generate rage. You could also use Enraged Warcry to make those Warcries do 30% more. The skills that the Warcries empower do 30% more damage, so that's another multiplier potentially. And then finally on the list of things that are just straight up buffed and kind of being ignored, I think, is banners. So Defiance Banner is now just 30% more armor and evasion rating and move speed. That's pretty great. And the ability to not have it despawn as soon as you move out of it. You can dip out and jump back in. I think that's really strong. And then again, War Banner, I think, is even better. 25% more attack damage, 50% increased attack accuracy rating, kind of whatever, 25 increased attack speed. So I think just looking at this, I think War Banner and Defiance Banner both look extremely strong. I think they're going to be really well suited to the Abyss playstyle, again, of kind of camping in one area. I think they'll work really well with totems, even though I don't love totems. I think they're just going to work really well. I think banners are perfect for warriors in the coming patch. So here's my plan for now. I'm going to run a standard warrior start. This is the tree that I'm sort of going to try to build toward, although it's obviously going to be different. I'll put this in the description so you can play along with it at the very least. But yeah, this is what I'm going to be building toward initially. And I think I'm just going to play around with this, the standard slam, bone shatter, shield charge setup until I can get the new forge hammer skill in Act 3. And so that would be this skill, right? From the big reveal, the forge hammer, you throw it out. It is a ranged slam. I'm going to try and do everything I can to like scale up the AoE, scale up the ability to make it stun enemies and do like shockwaves off of that, and kind of try to use it similarly to the lightning spear rather, Amazon playstyle last league, where I would clear maps by throwing spears around and then boss by using Stormlance and Wild Strikes. That's kind of what I'm going to be doing, right? I'm just run around throwing the mace at enemies. Hopefully that'll be something I can make kill monsters and use that for clearing, and then for rares and bosses, throw the mace, War Cry, and then Rolling Slam on top of the mace area where the volcanic fissures come out of it like that until the boss is dead. So it's going to wind up looking, hopefully, something like this. Pretty nice dodge. And then, yeah, just be doing a bunch of this, trying to like nuke bosses like that. I will probably try to shift into a fire damage ignite playstyle with the hopes of using the new Ancestral Cry skill, which looked insane. The redesigned ignite chance where fire damage naturally builds up flammability as a buff or debuff until you guarantee an ignite sounds really good to me. It's not just RNG procs, right? You're able to watch it progress and then time it out to guarantee an ignite on a big hit. So like Supercharged Slam or Perfect Strike or something. Like that sounds pretty good when your gear is straight up garbage on day one of the league. Now, I don't know if this build will be good or not. I am gambling on it being good, but I will say this. Clearing with heavy stun and armor break explosion, just leap slam bone shatter, is very good even with horrible SSF campaign gear, and that's not getting nerfed at all, it's actually getting buffed. There are so many sources of stun buildup throughout the passive tree. Titan gets built-in crushing blows and 50% more damage from heavy stun enemies. You know, I mentioned all this already. Like, there's so many good bonuses in the tree for doing damage to heavy stun enemies. So I think this is a line of build construction that's like pretty underrepresented, and I think it could basically break bosses in half like a damn toothpick. You can also instantly break armor by having stunning enemies with skills linked to the devastation support, and then there's this new passive Molten One's Gift that's going to make fully broken armor apply to fire damage taken from hits and also increase the effect of fully broken armor, so that's like 23% increased damage on that target. You know, if there are more sources of increased effective fully broken armor, I mean, that could wind up being like quite good. This seems extremely good for the new fire mace skills, the newly buffed ones. I mean, if for some reason this winds up being terrible, I really think it's going to be super easy to swap over to crossbow skills as a Titan. Those also got some big buffs, and the same kind of goes for evasion and deflection as well. I don't actually think armor and block are going to be bad, especially at league start when you have no budget, but if they really suck, you can just run evasion and deflection on a Titan. It's absolutely doable, and with the 50% bonus to small passives, it might even be better than most evasion ascendancies trying to run deflection. The drop in stat requirements is going to really help with wearing armor types that are outside of your starting area on your class. So that's my thinking on Warrior and League Start at the moment. I may be baiting myself. I may change my mind. I don't know. But what I do know is that I've played nothing but Dex builds at in-game so far in PoE 2, and I do want to give myself the challenge of figuring out how to make Warrior work in the coming season. So in conclusion, no, I don't think Warrior's dead in the coming patch. It certainly doesn't look like it's dead to me. I'm almost certainly going to play it, but you know, we'll see. Warrior seems so fun and different from everything else I've played that I think I'm feeling pretty good about it. I definitely want to put together a guide on how to blast a campaign on Warrior, and that's probably the next thing that we're going to work on. Alright, that's it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and join the Skipping Sleep Studio Discord so you can say hello to me, and Sunset if you haven't already. And finally, thank you to all of our channel members. If you want to support us so we can keep making more PoE content, become a channel member as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.